All right, let's dive into something that is either a totally brilliant new way to think about childhood education, or it's a really sophisticated sales program for kids. Honestly, the line is pretty blurry, and that's exactly what makes this so fascinating. We've got to ask, is this really about sales, or is it a whole new kind of character test?
Everything kicks off with this number, 24 million Vietnamese dong. That is the price tag for one single piece of software. Now, before you start racking your brain trying to figure out what kind of software could possibly cost that much, just hold that thought. Because believe it or not, the price isn't even the most surprising part of this story. What if the person trying to convince you to buy that software was a child? Yeah, that is the core idea behind a program called Beta2 by Kids. They actually handpick a group of children, they call them Kids CEOs, and they train them to sell this really high-value software. It sounds pretty wild, right? So let's break down exactly how this fascinating, maybe even controversial system actually works.
Okay, so first things first, we've got to talk about the money, where it comes from and where it all goes. Because if you really want to get the philosophy behind this program, you have to understand the financial engine that makes it all run. So check this out. Every single time a kid's CEO makes a sale, they're not just getting a simple commission. Out of that 24 million, they generate 17 million in direct value. 5 million of that goes straight to them as their commission. But here's the really interesting part. A massive 12 million gets funneled directly into a scholarship fund. Now, what's really clever is how that value gets shared. It's not always a 100% payout to the kid. The program has this really unique structure that involves sponsors, and it actually creates a pathway for these kids to become financially independent.
See, a lot of these kids get their start by using a software license that's been provided by a sponsor, some adult who's already invested. When that happens, any value the child creates is split. The kid's CEO, rightfully so, takes home the lion's share, 70%, while the sponsor who put up the license gets the other 30%.
And this is where you start to see the real long-term goal. This isn't about creating dependency. It's about building a path to empowerment. Once a kid's sales have generated more than 24 million for their sponsor, basically paying back the original cost of the license, that kid earns the right to buy their very own. From that point on, they keep 100% of everything they earn. And the sponsor's license? It's freed up to help a brand new child get started. It's a pretty cool self-sustaining cycle.
But here's the twist, and it's a big one. The program's real test has almost nothing to do with the money. The absolute heart of this training is all about getting these kid CEOs ready for the real world, and that means facing tough, skeptical customers. They actually call it the customer gauntlet.
So let's meet the first character they're trained to deal with, the aggressive skeptic. You know this person. They walk in, arms crossed, just full of doubt, and they are not afraid to voice it.
I mean, can you imagine being a kid and hearing that? It's a straight-up attack on the legitimacy of the whole thing. The training isn't about having some slick comeback. It's about learning how to stay composed and answer with integrity.
Okay, next up, they have to face the pressuring adult. This person doesn't just question the product, they question the kid's own intelligence, their own motives. Woof, this question cuts right to the heart of their authenticity. Are they just a puppet, repeating lines, or do they actually believe in what they're doing? The program prepares them for this direct challenge to their self-respect. So here's the crucial part. The training manual is filled with these incredibly difficult scenarios. And the goal isn't just to teach them what to say, but to cultivate a certain kind of maturity in how they respond. It's about developing a resilient mindset, not just memorizing a script. Let's look at one of the trap questions from their training. This one is specifically designed to test their entire definition of success. If the goal is just to make sales, a question like this is a knockout blow. But this program is playing a very different game. And just listen to the answer they're taught to give. See how it completely reframes the whole idea of success? It's not about the money. It's about the skills they're gaining, the confidence they're building, and the resilience they're forging in the fire. The sale is just the exercise. The learning is the real prize. Here's another advanced one. This question is designed to root out jealousy and that competitive, zero-sum mindset, which the program actively discourages. So what happens when someone else is winning? The answer they give just reveals the entire core philosophy. It's about collaboration over competition and personal growth over some ranking. The focus is completely internal. Am I a little bit better today than I was yesterday? That's it. This quote from the training's opening speech, it just brings the whole mission into perfect focus. The product, the price, the commissions, that's all just a vehicle for a much deeper lesson in self-worth and confidence. All of this is building towards what the program calls the CEO mindset. And let me tell you, they are completely redefining the term. They're moving it away from a stuffy corporate title and turning it into a set of personal virtues.
The definition they use is so explicit. A CEO isn't about being the boss or making the most money. It's a description of a person's character, someone who is resilient, someone who is humble, and someone who is accountable. These are the qualities the entire program is engineered to build.
This really just highlights the core contrast at the heart of the whole philosophy. It's a very deliberate shift away from those external metrics, like sales numbers, and towards the internal ones: resilience, accountability, and humility.
And it all comes down to these 3 golden rules from the Kids CEO Handbook. These aren't sales tactics, right? They are ethical principles. They guide every single interaction, making sure the focus stays on integrity and respect, not just on the results. This quote from the closing speech of their training is the ultimate takeaway. This program isn't about creating a bunch of kids salespeople. It's about using a business framework as a training ground for life skills, skills that will have value long after this software is forgotten. Which brings us right back to where we started, but now through a completely new lens. It really seems like this program is using the language of business to teach the lessons of character. So I'll just leave you with this to think about. Is this just a really novel way to build resilience in kids, or are we looking at an entirely new and maybe controversial frontier in what childhood education could even be?